Welcome to the weekly offload. So, guys, we have with us we'll call her a singer from Western Sydney, and you go by Yagki.
I do go by Yagki,
Yes,
yes.
and so you have such an amazing story. So, I was a little bit nervous about this podcast because I want to try to. If I can get one person to listen to your music after today, I'll be happy because I've been listening and I think the stories that you tell are absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And I also kind of like how your songs sound upbeat, but they're serious. That's actually what sort of music my partner was saying when we listened to you, what we like. So if you can, what I do now at the start of episode I ask is, how's life?
It's good. I think it's just very busy. I trying to wear a lot of hats, and being a musician means that I play a different role pretty much every minute, whether I'm writing or recording or on socials or talking to people that love my music, thinking of ideas. It's good. It's just very much always on. So
I to break the fourth wall, I brought you here to one playground, and I could sort of see. I think it was like an insight to your life because you're on the phone. You have your picnic for your fans coming up, so everything was sort of happening. You're dropping bags off. So is that you've sort of become accustomed to that life now? Would you say?
I have, and I think that at first especially this year, I think that I've kind of realized that to be able to do everything I want, I do need to, ask for help when I need to get somewhere or lean on people that are around me as well. I think for a very long time I was feeling, bad when I couldn't do a million things, and I had to really go, okay, well, what's going to be the most important thing for my career and myself, and kind of prioritize that, but also be able to make time for things like food or rest or just I think it's been really good because I've been able to vocalize when I've gone, oh, actually, can someone help me get to this place because I need to do this, rather than just trying to, do everything alone, really.
Yeah, because I can imagine. So I listened to your podcast twice on Hot Nerd. So shout out if they do listen. And your story is absolutely amazing. If we can, I wouldn't mind touching on that today because I think you mentioned on the podcast you do want to help people that are in similar situations and things like that. So could we start actually, you're saying you had a collapsed lung at 3 years old?
Yeah, well, it's kind of the timing's quite perfect because I had a collapsed lung when I was 3, but I didn't get any medical records from it. So I had no idea about what actually went on. So a couple of months ago, I put in like an application to the hospital to get all my medical records back, and I got them back 2 Mondays ago in the mail, which is pretty insane. So I read it. So why my lungs collapsed, I thought was because I swallowed ecstasy tablets from my mum. But when I was reading the hospital papers, it was because I arrived at the hospital after it was 5 ecstasy tablets at once. But I was having seizures, and that's why I got put into the coma, which was something that I had no idea about. So, and it was pretty surreal reading it because, it was things like, Sarah, 17 kilos, 5 tablets, multiple seizures, and then the collapsed lung happened, and reading the documents and reading the specificness of it was pretty insane. And I thought I was always only at one hospital, but I got to the end of the papers and I got transferred to Randwick Children's Hospital, and I'm still trying to get those papers, and that's a bit about my story.
Wow, yeah. I mean, that's amazing. Obviously, we're going to get into how you got into singing and performing, but you're saying to me in the car, it's sort of, obviously it's your passion, and it's would you say a form of therapy for yourself as well?
I think so. I think that with the way that I grew up, you kind of for me, I needed to hold on to something, or else I would have just fallen into, being in a cycle of parents weren't very well off, grew up somewhere not very well off, doesn't know anything else, so just stays in that cycle. And I see a lot of people, most people that I grew up with stay in that. So I think for me, I wasn't really good at music at all, but I learnt very early that I had to get passionate about something, because without passion I would just, fall into the same habits that I didn't want to be a part of.
100%. Well, your singing is going to come to a head when you're doing a new segment of teaching me how to
I
sing.
will,
This
yeah.
might be one of your hardest tests ever. It's considering how many hurdles you've gone through. That is amazing. We spoke in the car about one thing. Obviously, you spoke briefly about your dad.
Yeah.
And you were saying like he had the heart for being a dad, but just not the financial means.
Yeah.
And obviously, like I said, this podcast is about you, but I said that resonated with me because sometimes I can feel guilty or ashamed of, let's say, the money I'm earning as a dad. But then for myself, I do have that emotional connection. So how do you see that relationship now with your dad?
Yeah. I think at the start, like very early on, I didn't see that as growing up. So both my dad and I are very, very quick with our words. So we would butt heads a lot. And I didn't really understand that until I left home when I was 16. And when I left home and I lived in a couple of refuges, I saw everyone else and I saw everyone's situation that was very similar to mine. But then I still felt like I had heart in me. And I was like, okay, well, where did that come from? And it was, seeing my dad, he wouldn't have much, but he'd give his last anything to me and my brother. And I think the idea of like being able to push and just believe and have hope was a big thing from my dad. And I think that's very much kept me there. And, you can have a parent that has all the money in the world, but they can't give you, skills that you can't buy. And my dad is very much someone that just like holds on to hope to his own detriment sometimes. But I didn't realize that until I wasn't there, and then I could see that. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he'd be so proud of you today, the person you've become. Do you think that upbringing, would you be able to speak to your fans as much as you can? Do you think that sort of molded you as an artist?
I think so. I think that being able to grow up the way that I did means like when I look at someone, it feels like I can look at every part of who they are. And I think that I'm very much I get anxious and I have my own sort of things that I have, but I think because I can be vocal about it and I can express it means that a lot of my fans who need a space to feel safe enough to express it are able to do that. And I think with a lot of music, and this is a very personal opinion, it's not a matter of fact at all, but I think that there's a lot of music that goes, oh, I am all better and everything's rainbows and sweet and perfect. And then there's music that's, oh, everything's horrible and dark. There's nothing wrong about either one, but I think that as an artist, I want to talk about all the space in between. Not necessarily when things are amazing, not necessarily when things are so bad, but maybe just the parts in the middle where you're trying to like fill that grey space, if that makes sense.
Yes, 100%. I want to lead into that by talking about your message, and I've actually written it on my phone just so I don't absolutely butcher this.
No.
But 1 second. If you're on Spotify, you're like, God. So you want to show male aggression but in a female gaze.
Yeah.
Can you explain that to our listeners?
So my last song that I released, Run, the main idea of that song was very kind of like bringing back to who I was at like 15 or 16, which was a very reckless version of myself that, wasn't acting reckless because just wanted to, but because out of fear. And I think for me that there was a lot of male characters that portrayed that, like one character in particular. It's a show called Outer Banks, and I don't watch a lot of TV, but that one resonated because there was this character called JJ, and he was so charismatic and kind and had all these beautiful qualities, but when something just pushed him too far, he acted out of fear, and that was just impulsive. But I've seen so many like thirst trappy TikToks made of him when he is aggressive. But for, I think, females, when that same situation happens, you see a lot of perception of them as like manic and uncontrolled. But when I was growing up and when I was 15 and 16, it was like I had so much control of who I was. I had so much control of who I knew that I was, and it was very, very factored in because of the way that I grew up. You had to grow up very fast. But I wanted to represent that part of me where it was reckless, not because there was no other choice, but this was just the choice that felt right.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I think I was speaking to you. It's like I was meant to have you on because that's one of the things. As I said, it's quite a lofty goal, but I want to try to bring male, I guess, men and women back together or an understanding for itself. But because they're saying the genders are getting further apart, especially after COVID and with social media and things like that. But
Yeah.
I completely agree with you because I remember even growing up, everyone that I would see, on the TV or let's say celebrity, for example, if they were aggressive, as you said, it's like, oh, she's lost
Yeah.
it. She's lost, especially probably in every country, but in Australia, it's like, oh, she's lost it. Whereas with the man, it might be, as you said, just considered, oh, he just had a lapse of like
He had a bad day
aggression.
at work. He's just taking it out.
Yeah, more excuses. And
Yeah.
also, I think at least nowadays, as you said, that aggression to get you to where you are now is more acceptable for young girls now. Whereas even, I mean, I'm a lot older than you, but when I was growing up, it was, that sort of even aggression for work maybe was considered like, oh, she's a bit pushy.
Yeah, exactly.
So is that, do you think that's getting better now?
I think it's hard for me to say. I think that I've been very lucky that a lot of the environments that I'm in now, the way that I am, I think that I feel very like welcomed and safe, but I know that there's a lot of people that don't. So for me, it's hard to tell because I know that I'm very, in my own sphere, but at least when I was growing up, you couldn't act like that at all.
Yeah, I don't want to jump around too
No,
much,
it's
but
okay.
because you are very busy as well,
Go for it.
your song "Adults."
Yes.
So I heard what you're saying, obviously on the podcast about that, and I found it a very very interesting topic.
Yeah.
Obviously it could be full on for a few people, just in terms of you're saying it's the sort of the grooming and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think, as you said, you're giving a voice to those sort of people. So can you explain for our listeners that song?
So I wrote Adults about a relationship, quote unquote, that I had with my ex-uni lecturer. And I did my uni interview with him. I was 17. He was married at the time, went through my 3 years of uni. And he was like the, I guess the cohort leader. Like he was the person you'd go to for any problems and he'd get close to everyone. And then I think it was the year after I graduated, I had a really bad situation happen. And I remember where I was. I was on Lyons Road in Drummoyne near like the DFO, the shopping centre. And I was like, oh, I feel really bad. Who do I message? And my brain went to him because he'd always been there. So I messaged, we grabbed dinner. Dinner turned into his house. And he smoked weed. And that was when I was dabbling. So he was like, oh, do you want some? And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And then we ended up sleeping with each other. And at first I was very much like, oh, this is so fun. Like I used to find you attractive. Like there's nothing wrong with this. At the time he was also divorced at that point. But then very quickly, I think it was 6 or 7 weeks or 8 weeks max, the whole thing happened. I just felt and saw this person that I admired so much, like, and I almost I did look up to, just kind of like shatter in front of me. And I used to try and make excuses. I remember I would be like, oh, I can't stay over because I don't have my skincare. He went out and bought me skincare. Oh, I can't stay over because I don't have my laptop. Went and bought me an iPad. And he was using his divorce money for it as well. And I felt really stuck throughout the whole thing. And I think it was halfway through, it was just a lot of emotion for 8 weeks maybe tops. And halfway through I was like, well, this isn't technically grooming, I thought, because I was like, we're both adults. And I had a friend sit me down and was like, no, it still is. And I was like, well, how is it? Like it's only if it's a kid and it's an adult. And my friend was like, well, because you grew trust for him, like your trust, those years of like him being your, he's above you in that sense, influenced it. So how I got out of the whole situation, I realized that I had to make him not want to be around me, which I did. And I remember I was in Alexandria and I was with my friend, and he sent me an email, the longest email I've ever read. It was just, you had to swipe and swipe and swipe. And at the very end of it, he was like, I don't think we should be together. And I went out and I had a little party with me and my friends because everyone was so happy for me. And I remember how much weight lifted off my shoulders when I got that email.
Yeah, because it's interesting you say that because I can't disclose obviously who it
Yeah.
is, but I heard a story about two people that the man knew the friend when they're about like 12 or 13, right? And obviously they didn't get together at that stage, thank God.
Yeah.
But they got together later in life. And I think those sort of stories, as you said, people, even on social media, for example, I know Jerry Seinfeld is one of those people that apparently met his partner when he was 17.
Yeah.
Same sort of thing. But then a lot of the comments say, oh, but they only get together when they're older.
Yeah.
And those people probably are vulnerable because maybe they have something going on in their life and the male figure probably sees that.
Yeah.
And then obviously acts on it when it's a legal age. But I thought it was interesting that you're speaking for those sort of people, which is a good thing.
Well, I think as well with that, like the particular people with adults was, I guess, like people in positions of power especially. And after I released Adults, I had a lot of, unfortunately, but fortunately, a lot of people from that particular uni reach out to me and say, hey, I've had the same situation, but with different lecturers, which is pretty insane. And I loved the uni that I went to. Like, I really loved it. I think it was incredible because it was the first space that I went into where everything was music. So I think the point of that song, which is why I haven't said the uni name, is because it isn't about the uni to me. The uni I loved, and I'm so grateful for everything I learnt there. But there should be more responsibility when there are people coming in that are vulnerable to those people that are in positions of power. So especially in the music industry, you get a lot of it where at any age, someone that thinks that they're better than you can take advantage. And that's the one thing, like, I don't not like a lot of things. I'm a very open and accepting person, but I think that I spoke about it the other day, actually. Someone was talking about an artist and I just said, I was like, I don't know why I don't like working with him, but I think that the gut feeling I got was I don't like people that think that they're better than someone else and like try and present that. And it was just that's why I just didn't like it, yeah.
Yeah, I can understand. I think also with your upbringing, you would have a good sense of intuition, right?
I think that I run a lot on gut feeling, and I think that it's a very street smarts approach that I have.
Well, you sort of had to be.
Yeah.
Can I ask you as well? What's your favorite song? Is it like picking a favorite child?
I think I've got a favorite child, though. I do. My favorite song's Alone. It's the very first one on Spotify right now. But I think I wrote that. It was an interesting one for me. It's got all my songs have a very sad story attached to it. So very, a trigger warning to anyone listening to any of this as well. But I think for me, Alone was written about a headline show that I had. I had this really big headline show a few years ago at Oxford Art Factory, and it was incredible. I had so many people there, friends, family, people I worked with, and there was this big party afterwards, and a lot of XYZs at this party to drink and do, and I think that I got caught in my little spiral of, I'm really good, but I think there was just things around me that was almost like triggering the way that I grew up. And then I went home that night and I had such a big high from this show, but I just still felt so low. And I ended up, I was like maybe 20 or 19. And then I tried to myself. And I had two people that found me and called the ambulance and XYZ. And I wrote this song Alone about, having this incredible high and then just still feeling like everything was quite empty. And I think that's why the Alone, like, if you leave, what's left of me? And for me, if you leave was like music, and if all this other stuff was left, like what's left with me? And I need to be happy with myself just without all of that. So yeah, I think I'm very much in a better spot now, which is really good. But it's hard because sometimes it's not because something happens that you can just feel really low. Sometimes it's, I call it like a ripple effect. If you've had something really traumatic happen, or have had to get over something like, like an upbringing or addiction or anything like that, it's hard to explain to people sometimes that even though it's not currently happening, that you still have ripples and there's still things that like linger of that, and you might have a low not because anything's happened, but just because you're kind of your body and your mind's almost still recovering from the lasting effects of that. And I think I just caught myself that night going, oh, I'm still a bit closer than I realized.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for sharing that, because obviously it's not the easiest thing to talk about on a podcast, but I think what you just said could help many people listening to this at the moment. I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
I've got so many things running through my head, but I'll try to keep it sort of specific. But I just wanted to ask, are you worried, or is there any fear in you? Because I know a lot of singers or artists, as you're sort of saying, you can get the high of the shows and things like that. And I know, I actually feel very confident you're going to blow up and be big. Just, I don't know, it's just a feeling. But is there any part of you that worries? Because obviously it can be a life of hotel to hotel. Is there any part of you that worries about that life, or you think you've worked on so much now that you'll be okay?
I think I've worked on so much now that I'll be okay. And I think that I think that there will definitely be chances for me to fall back into some pretty bad spaces. But the fact that I can vocalize that now and be aware of that now, I think that I've just got to trust that there's also people around me that know me well enough that can see it. And it's very odd. The job that I have now, I mentioned a little bit of my upbringing for the first time in an interview, and it's those moments where I actually can like take a hold of my past. And for a very long time, I wasn't sharing my past. I had to, when people say what motivates you or what's the hardest thing that you've had to do, I kind of just left out the first 16 years. But it's only now that I've started to talk about it, and I think not in a bad way, and not like by yapping about it too much, but the fact that people are aware that I have that upbringing means that I'm great now, but if something happened, someone should at least be aware and might be able to help rather than me staying quiet. And I think that I've got such a beautiful community of fans, especially now, where they hopefully are feeling like they can speak up to, and I think that anyone's past is there's nothing to be ashamed about it. So coming back to the question about, being worried, I think that, I've worked a very long time and a very hard amount of work to get to the point that I can at least say if something's gone wrong or tell or show it in some sort of way. I'm a very open book, so something would give, I reckon.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think, the second thing I was thinking about was it is hard to be an artist too, because I've heard many people, this is a bit more lighthearted than what you've been through, but I've heard a lot of people saying, let's say, for example, when a singer brings a song out, if it's not about heartbreak, they're like, I don't want to hear it. Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of tough, because I find many artists that people connect with or that are so powerful have that message, or have I guess you could say trauma and things like that. So for yourself, I guess, for you, how much is it going back into your past, and then how much is it speaking about the new you? Yeah.
I think that it's kind of a bit of both, but a lot of the songs that I was releasing a little bit before the ones that I'm releasing this year were more, I guess, relationship focused. And I think it was, in the nicest way, it was easier to talk about relationships first. It was easier to talk about the bad things that went on in relationships, and not realize, oh, but why are these bad things happening? Oh, because you're attracted to this person. Why are you attracted to the bad qualities of this person? And a lot of it came down to, for me, rethinking that chaos was safe and safe was chaotic, and then realizing that I had a bit of a distorted perception of that, and then just kind of coming back and asking why. And I think that it's kind of, I always think about my songs that there's a 2D and there's a 3D. So the 2D of, for example, Adults is about this relationship. But then the 3D is why didn't I leave? Why couldn't I leave? And I think that, it's a bit of both. It's definitely a bit of both. And a lot of the songs that I'm writing, at least now, And that will probably be coming out because I've got all my songs for this year ready, which is incredible. But a lot of the stuff that I'm writing now that's for next year, I guess, is a lot more about like my past, especially getting those medical records. It was very, very surreal getting those because I think that for a very long time, I know that what happened to me happened. You can, if you Google specific words, you can find it on the internet and find even my mum's name on the internet who did it. And she was only 26 when she did that to me as well, which is kind of wild to think about. But I think, yeah, a lot of the songs now are a bit of both, and a lot of the songs that are coming are going to be very much about my life because I'm still in the process to try and remember it all. And I'm in a position now where, for example, the seizures, that still boggles me because I'm like, I've never wrote that down. I've never wrote that down on a medical certificate. I've never let like a workplace know that happened. So if something happened to me, like, just have no idea. So I think a lot of it's going to be past me. The next few songs.
So amazing. Sorry, I'm just listening to you. It's amazing, the story. I hope you guys on Spotify are loving this. But yeah, it's just, your story is so amazing. I wanted to, you don't have to answer any questions as well, but I wanted to ask you something just about, as I said, relating back to me being a dad. I sort of do question some of the things like my parents did or my partner's parents. Obviously, it wasn't to any extent of what you've been through. Yeah. But how do you have any animosity? Do you sort of feel sorry for them in some sense? Like, how do you view them now?
I think with my dad, I think I very much feel like bad for him. I think that a lot of, because when I found out, it always comes back to the medical records. It's a very perfect time that we're having this chat. When I was reading them, I kind of asked, I was like, well, did anyone take my me and my brother in? And apparently my dad's got 2 sisters, 2 brothers, and no one took my brother and I in because they were too scared of my mum. And in my head, I was like, if that happened to if my brother had a kid and that happened to my brother, I'd take the kid in straight away. I wouldn't let them go to foster care. So for me, when I heard that, I just felt really bad for my dad because, imagine having 2 kids needing someone to help and no one being there. So I think that's very much dad. And like with my mum, I haven't seen my mum for about like a decade now because I think for me, I realized with her, there can be people that are, that have heart for it, and then there are some people that, although they are related to you and they're your parent, some people just aren't good to be around. And I made that choice. And for me, I've got 4 siblings. I've got 4 younger siblings, and I had 2 choices. I had, when they grow up, because I've got really little siblings as well. I think my youngest brother's 5, half brother, and if they ask me, if they go, oh, when did you see mum? I would rather go, oh, I haven't seen her for 10 years because I just, need to focus on you guys and myself, than go, oh, I try to see her and then she disappeared and then like in and out. My mum's not a consistent person at all. And I want to, as a person and as just, for anyone, I want to pride myself on being someone that's reliable and will turn up. So if I'm around someone that just never turns up, it's not a good look for me. So, I know my mum has had a very rough life herself, but then I see my dad who, was able to have a rough life too and still have heart for it.
Yeah. I completely understand that. It's as I said, for myself, I guess parenting's probably one of the hardest things in the world, but then also I can understand what you're saying in terms of neglect and things like that. It is hard to understand when I have the love for my daughter and just and my client is actually a social worker and she's been situations obviously with children and things like that, and it is hard for me to understand how, but as you're going back to the childhood plays a big part. But and then look at yourself, you've had this childhood and look, you're doing amazingly as well. So
you can, that's what I mean. It's like you can get out of it, but sometimes I think for me, if I didn't have music and I didn't have my brother, because my other 3 siblings are quite little, while I've got a brother who's only a year and a half younger than me, one of my big goals was to be able to because I left, I went to a refuge and I stayed there. I want to be able to, have a home and have a life that if they needed somewhere to go, they could come to me. And that's what I want. And to be able to do that, I need to be able to work. I need to be able to show up. I need to be good myself. And I think that it's really hard to, I made all these choices at 16. So it was very much, I had a lot of people, especially at school, say it was the wrong choice, and having to, believe in yourself and just trust your gut feeling amongst everything else is I am very lucky. I very much feel like I've got a really good sense of intuition, but that's such a big thing as well. It's, how do you, if the entire world's looking at you saying, that's a bad idea, that's not a good, thing to do. And, the most incredible ideas or companies or songs are made out of people that have no one else that believes in them. And then they just have to kind of believe in this like feeling. And that's how I kind of got to where I was able to be, just believing in myself. And, there was no one really else doing that, because who's going to trust a 15, 16-year-old girl to know what the right choice is? I was just very lucky.
Yeah, normally we ask our guests their Achilles heel, so their weakness. But I actually, because you've been so open, I want to ask you what you like about yourself.
I think that why is that the hard question? I think that I like how open I am to my past now. I think I like that I am able to have this openness with myself, in the way that I react, in the way that I do things. And I think that I'm a lot more accepting on myself now than I think I've ever been.
That's great. That's amazing. And I do also want to touch on, work in the music industry. We spoke a little bit about this in the car.
Yeah.
I know you probably can't say everything, but do you find it can be an industry that can have not the best people at different times? Like, is it attracted to a type of person as well?
I don't know if it's necessarily attracted to a type of person, but I stopped working in like a company that was music industry because it just wasn't sustainable. And the big thing about the music industry is that you have to grow. You have to learn how to be adaptable. You have to, look how things are changing and know how to change, but also know how to make it your own as well. And I worked somewhere that just didn't want to grow and didn't want to change. And when they saw me trying to grow and change, they almost try to like throw a rope at me and pull me back and pull me down. And I think the music industry is a beautiful place of artists and people who do really care, but there's a lot of a white noise around the entire space until you find your people. And it's really interesting because when I was working an industry job in a company, I was doing less as an artist, I think, but now I do still do like PR and stuff like that for musicians as like a freelance sort of thing, just so I can, offer affordable options for artists, because usually costs $4,000 a song for PR, which is ridiculously just horrible that there's companies that try and make independent artists pay that much. But I'm almost doing more for myself as an artist because I don't have as much industry noise. And I think with the music industry, there's like two parts of it. There's, as an artist, industry markers. So, I've been played on this radio station and I get this blog and I've gotten that and I'm very grateful for that. But what I'm focusing on above all else now is my audience and having audience markers. So people coming to shows. After this, I'm going to go have a little picnic with like my fans and just eat food and probably draw and probably laugh because I have so much energy with them. But I'm focusing on people because I think with any industry at least, particularly with music, if you have enough people saying your name, whether it's a podcast, whether it's an artist, no matter what it is, I really believe that if there's enough of a community that is saying, oh, Yagki, then all the other industry markers, they're going to have to turn around and listen eventually.
So why do you think you resonate with your fans?
I think it's because they all, I think, take parts of me and I can see it in themselves, and then vice versa. I think there's this big space of like, I grew up almost very isolated and alone, and I think a lot of the fans that I have almost find their own sort of solitude and feel like they're in their own sort of bubble as well. But it's really beautiful because I think that all of us have our own, if the bubble analogy makes sense, have our own bubble, but together we can kind of just have this community that feels like we can be together. And I think they resonate with me because I will always just be as honest as I can with them. All my music will be as honest as I can. Me as a person, I'll be as honest as I can. And, you know, I'm not perfect, but I'll never, you know, pretend to be like that. And I won't be, I think, especially in pop, there's a lot of polish. There's a lot of polish in that. Well, I think I very much represent more of like an underdog with, the, you know, not the person that's, for me and my audience, I think I resonate. So, you know, if there's a classroom of kids, the person that's in the corner by themselves. And there's so many of those people. And then we all just get to be together. So, yeah.
Amazing. And then what about your plans for the future?
Well, I have a US show, which I wasn't expecting to get this early. So I'm waiting. It's a very expensive visa, so I'm just trying to apply for grants and, you know, whatever else I can to, you know, afford to go. But there's the show there. I've got an LA show. That was my first show, and I was like, I'm just gonna try and get a few more while I'm there. Like, might as well. And now I've got 3 shows in the 1 week, which is incredible. So I've got 2 in San Francisco, 1 in LA, but I'm just waiting to get a visa. That's the only thing that's stopping me is this visa. So hopefully I'll be able to get it and go. And then releasing music for the rest of the year. I've got an EP coming out in September, which I'm really excited for. And then writing for next year. So
Speaking of being on stage, do you still get nervous?
I used to get nervous so much earlier. I used to get nervous, you know, days before a show, but now I'll be so like focused on like training for it, practicing, yada, yada, that it'll be literally like the minute before I go on stage that I'll feel all the nerves at once and go, this is it. I can't go on stage. But I've got a show on May 24th in Sydney that if anyone wants to come, I'd love people to be there. But I'm doing like an art exhibition show, which I haven't really spoken about yet, but it's going to be just the last song and this song is a lot about like my sleep. And, you know, because I've lived such a life, I always think that something has to give. I can function perfectly fine now, but I've always had issues with my sleep because of that. So that these next 2 songs very much focus on that. And yeah, I've got that show coming up, which I'm very excited for.
When you did struggle with your sleep, how many hours were you getting a night?
Well, I still struggle with it, but I grew up having like sleep paralysis 5-6 nights a week, like most nights. And that was, I think the earliest memory I've got was like me being like 5 or 6 after foster care, because I remember being in my uncle's place and I was like in a room with my cousins and I was really little. I remember that. And then I had it for 15 years until I was about 20. And then I just have I have a lot of nightmares. I still get very much reoccurring nightmares. But I try and get 7. I try and get 7 hours of sleep as much as I can, but it's still quite hard because I think that I fall asleep very easily, but it's not the best quality of sleep. So, but it's just, there's some things that are, you know, you can't, you know, have the experiences that I have and get away with everything. So for me, my sleep's a bit of a difficult one.
Yeah. Do you find, even though it's a negative, that in a way that is your superpower because you have more time to do things? Does that? I don't
want to, if I think like that, I won't get any sleep. I'll go, no, I don't need it. And I used to. I think it's a little bit of a superpower in terms of like the visuals. Like it's all the sleep paralysis stuff and the nightmares they feel so real that when I wake up, I can still kind of feel it and see it. So when I create and I write music, I still can kind of hone in on being so visual and take that as the really big positive thing and like create something from that.
How the hell do you write a song? I've always wondered that.
Everyone's different. I start with like piano. So I start and I feel the sounds first. So for example, if I was playing a couple of chords and then I just kind of like hum over it. And I think that for me, I get in a really good space where I can play music and just kind of let myself sing whatever it needs to. It doesn't matter if it sounds good, bad. That's not the point. It's to be able to get whatever's happening in my head out. And then once I've got a good flow of what I want the story to be, what I feel like, then I start writing. But it changes. Sometimes all right, and it'll take me ages to get somewhere. And then sometimes, like the other night, I wrote something and I just finished it so fast. But it's always, the best thing to do is always just finishing it. Whether the song's the worst song in the world or the best song in the world, it's the act of practicing it, doing it, finishing it, and then coming back and trying again. It's like anything, songwriting and music's a skill, and it's something that some people are naturally very good at it, but then if they're naturally very good at it and they don't practice, then they'll always stay at that level. While someone that wasn't necessarily born with those skills, but they practice every day and they work so hard at it. I'm such a big believer in, like, you can't teach that sort of grind and that grit. If you really want something and you can put everything into it, then you'll be able to get wherever you need to go. And I very much do that with everything in my life.
I thought you were gonna say you can't teach singing because that's coming up.
No, you can teach singing.
But I was gonna say, I just wanted to ask you one more thing before you try to teach this no talent bums how to sing. I was gonna ask you, do you ever get blocks?
I do. I definitely do. I think if I get a block, it's because I need to write the most. If I feel like I can't do something, you know, whether I guess with anything, like, if there's a bad day and you don't feel like exercising, or there's a bad day and you don't feel like writing music, it's probably the day you need it the most. So I just try and be patient with myself and start anything and finish anything. And I don't get it right every time, but I still always show up.
And with a song, so this is gonna sound like I'm up myself, but if we do a good podcast, I can listen to it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
If it's what I interpret as not good, I almost can't finish it. But if I like it, I can listen to it a lot. With your music, can you listen over and over to? I've always wondered that with an artist.
I think I can, but for example, like, I just released my song Run last week, 2 weeks. Time is an illusion. Whenever I released it, very recently, I released Run, but then my brain's already on the next 2 songs, but not necessarily because I don't like that song, but because I'm always like, okay, that's gone, but I need to plan the next one. I feel like I can. I feel like if I had more time in the world, which I will, I can always make time. I want to try and like redo some of my songs live to make them a bit different live, but I think I can. I think I can listen to myself, but I get what you mean. If I've had a really bad show and I don't want to listen to myself on stage live, I will avoid that video of me live and go, that doesn't exist. But if it's a really good show, I did a show last year in Wollongong, and I loved it. And I felt so up myself, but I was watching myself sing on stage the whole time. I had this girl in front of me. I had a group of girls who were like, woo, but one was really drunk and she was trying to like flash me, and her boyfriend was there trying to get her to stop. And I was like, ooh, but like everyone was like, I had everyone in that room locked into me. Bit too much, but everyone was there. And I was just rewatching myself on stage that night and I was like, oh, I did so well. I'm very proud of myself.
Do you feel that? Because I didn't grow up as much as a musical person as, say, my partner, Polly.
Yeah.
But I went to one particular show where I don't know if you know the presets, but they played. Yeah. And it was the first time I could feel like that everyone was connected. And it was for a fire relief, actually, for Queensland. This was in 2010. Yeah. So there'd been Coldplay, all these other like massive stars. And I guess Presets are considered Australian artists. And then they come on late. It just started raining a little bit. And every person, whether they knew them or it was their first time seeing them, mums, kids, everyone was just so connected. And I actually haven't had that experience exactly again. But as an artist on stage, do you feel the connection? Do you know when it's a show that's bang?
I feel like I do. I feel like I definitely do when I'm on stage. Like that Wollongong show definitely was it. And yeah, I'm excited for the May show because I think that's going to be a really good one. Yeah,
it sounds good. So here's the biggest test.
Okay.
So not of your life, but this is going to be a hard one. So you're going to teach me how to sing. I actually feel very nervous for this part of the podcast. So let's give it a go.
All right. So when you sing, you always breathe from your diaphragm.
Okay.
So where your diaphragm is, if you put your hands underneath your ribs.
Yeah.
And you breathe in. Can you see it, like, feel your stomach expand? That's where you want to breathe. You don't want to go like with your chest.
Okay.
Breathe. So, for example, What song? I will do.
Oh God, I'm already thinking that's amazing.
We'll do the first line of the pre-chorus for adults. So
Okay.
how I do it, I take a deep breath in. Ba, ba. I just sing that though. Just to try and match my voice to me. I'll sing.
God, this is gonna be the hardest thing I've ever done. Okay. Ba.
And now, you're a lower voice than me. Now you want to try and match it. For example, right now, my note is here. Your note is a bit here. Imagine it's like a bullseye. And you're trying to get right to the center of the snow. Listen to my voice and try and do the same thing using your breath.
Okay.
Big breath in from the diaphragm. That's still pretty good. That's still pretty good.
I'm actually, my instinct is to joke because whenever I'm in situations where I'm bad at things or I try to joke,
It's
but
just
I'm
the
actually,
notes, yeah.
I'm trying my best
I think you sounded great.
my partner says you could she goes, when we sing at home, she'll go, just try to sing for me. And I always can't not joke.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because she's actually, oh God, I'm never going to live this down, but she's actually a pretty good singer.
Amazing.
But she always says, you don't think I'm very good at singing. But so I'm trying my best. But
It's all in the breath.
Okay.
It's all in the breath.
Okay. Should we do one more?
Do you have a favorite song?
That's tough.
That's a big question.
Yeah, because I kind of like Vance Joy's Missing Piece. Do you know that?
Not by the name.
Okay.
What about I'm just trying to think of one that's in like a low key. Like a low, like a
because I've got a very, very deep voice.
You've got a deep voice.
Yes.
What about? Do you have any other artists that you like?
I'm trying to think who my favorite artist would be at the moment. It's hard no wonder why my guests on the podcast are like, God, when you get questions, hard when you put on the spot, isn't it? But I'm trying to think of what
Do you like Matchbox 20?
Yes, I do like Matchbox 20. That is due to I must mention my lovely sister. Oh. She loved Matchbox 20, so I know a lot of their songs. Great pick, by the way.
Thank you. What's but I'm not crazy, I'm just a little unwell.
That's my favorite song from them. I swear, I've listened to that, especially if I'm feeling down or whatever it is. Like, I love that. That's so weird that you said that song. I love that song. Yes, yeah.
I'm gonna do it. I'll probably do it a bit higher because it's very low for me. I'm not crazy, I'm just a little unwell.
Okay, God.
Big breath.
Okay.
I'm not crazy,
I'm just a little unwell.
Can you feel the diaphragm?
Yeah, it is actually a lot different because, as I said, when I always do it, it's joking around, obviously, but it is a lot different. I'm gonna try to practice that at home.
Diaphragm breathing, you have to practice because I was like, I don't know if you see it. You've got a kid, so when they're a baby, do you see how like when their tummies move?
Yes, yeah.
That's because that's how we're meant to properly breathe. But as we get older, we take a lot of shallow breaths. So we take a lot of like from our chest, like this sort of stuff. But why babies breathe like that is because they're breathing from their diaphragm, because that's the way that we're meant to. So when you lie down like tonight in bed and you just try and breathe normally when you lie down, you'll naturally actually breathe from your diaphragm.
Wow.
It's just trying to do that when we're standing up because we're just used to being anxious and moving. So we try and take really like shallow and anxious breaths. But singing, you've got to fill up your diaphragm.
Wow, that's really interesting. Well, my daughter's always in our bed, not by choice. So I'll see how she breathes, and then I'll try to match it. Okay,
yeah,
so we unlearn it. You're saying
we unlearn it. Yeah, we unlearn it just because we get busy and anxious, and our life just goes to like pew 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 pew.
Yeah, it's amazing. I wanted to thank you so much for coming on. It's been such an amazing podcast. I knew you'd be excellent. I wanted to sort of end off by asking you, and I mean, you can not give yourself advice, but if you could give a young Aggie advice, what would you What advice would you give? Yagki.
No, that's okay. I think for me, I've said it, and it's a bigger on a loop thing for me. But I think I'd say to myself to just, like, I guess, trust that everything's going to be okay and trust your intuition first. I think that growing up, I still had a lot of different voices around me, and I was very, very, very alone and believing in myself. And then I was like, it worked out. It worked out. So just trying to tell myself to, keep trusting my gut. Keep trusting my gut and my intuition.
Yeah, it's a hard one because we normally do ask our guests, but I was thinking for yourself, everything that you've gone through has made you the amazing person you are today. And and for context, like for our listeners, obviously you work at one playground,
I do.
But myself and you hadn't had that many conversations before. No. So except for in the car driving here and then on this podcast. So it's been, like I said, I'm actually quite grateful for meeting you. And I mean that, I know people probably say that, but I am being genuine about that. And then last thing that I'm always bad at, but usually Achilles is better at, is I always forget to say this, but shout out any socials or anywhere that people can find you.
So I'm Yagki, so Yagki. On Instagram is I am Yagki, like I am Batman, but a lot lamer because Batman's very cool. And then on Spotify, Apple Music, it's Yagki, Yagki. The K is silent. So yeah. That's all my stuff. You'll be able to find my last name very easily anywhere.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you. If you'd like, I'd love to get you back on.
I'd love that.
Because I feel like your story is so multifaceted. Like you've got so many things you can say, and then obviously when you come back on, you would have done other shows and things
maybe
like that.
Maybe after America. Hopefully I come. Hopefully.
Oh, no. Yeah, you might get picked up and then you might leave me on red. You just see the weekly offload. Oh, hey, remember when you were on our little podcast?
You've got my phone number. You can find it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, if you get too big. But as I said again, appreciate sharing your story. It's not easy. And I think you were saying as well, obviously you're used to, performing on stage, but a podcast is it's a different feeling or different vibe. But I think you've spoken so well, and and I think everyone would be proud of you, your friends and your family. So thanks so much for coming on. That's all right. All right. Thank you guys for listening. We've taken a load off for this week.